What is going on, everybody? Taylor here, and today I'm here to talk about my thoughts on Solo, a Star Wars story. Now, I want to start this video off by getting a few things out of the way. First of all, I have seen it twice now, so I'm very confident in the way that I feel about this movie. Second of all, I'm very much ready to be called out for being a shill and someone who's paid off by Disney and a fake Star Wars geek fan, whatever, because I absolutely loved this movie. Both times I had a fantastic experience, and I'm also someone that loved The Last Jedi, so I'm super ready for everyone to hate me even more after this review. And with that out of the way, I think we can get started. Let's do this. So I went into this movie cautiously optimistic. If any of you watched either of my trailer reactions, you will know that I was very nervous about this movie. I was very scared, I didn't like the casting, and I didn't think I was going to leave this movie liking it. I never wanted this movie made in the first place, and I just all around had bad vibes about this movie. So, I was wrong. I was completely wrong, because I absolutely love this movie. I loved it enough to go see it a second time the day after I saw it the first time. And I love it. I had so much fun with this movie. I thought the cast was great. I loved what they did with the characters for the most part. But let's break it down. So, the opening of the movie, I really enjoyed. I like that it starts off on Corellia, I believe is how it's pronounced, the ship-making or shipyard planet that Han, I believe, is from, because that's where we see him starting out, and he talks about, at one point in the movie, he talks about that's where his dad worked before getting laid off at a plant where they made ships. But, so we start off there, and right away we see him hot wiring a ship, so it starts the tone of the movie. Straight off the bat, know what you're getting, know what kind of life he's leading, and I love that. I love that we just get dropped straight into it, and I love that the dice, or the die, make an appearance pretty much right away. That put the biggest smile on my face, especially after everything that happened with The Last Jedi. But, so that was awesome. It shows us Qi'ra. We meet Qi'ra very early on, which I didn't know if that was going to happen or if we were going to run into her later. But we learn that he is friends with Qi'ra and they kind of help each other survive, it seems like, in this world of, having to steal things and having to do jobs for people in order to get shelter. And I really liked the scene where he goes to meet, I believe, Lady Proxima is her name, the one that is pretty much in charge of this housing unit that they live in, and makes them, do jobs for her to earn their keep, essentially. And one of my, I don't know if I would say it's one of my favorite things, but it's a thing that really kind of right away gives you insight into Han, where he is in a situation where he's, getting beat up and he is getting threatened and, has to think his way out of this situation, and just takes a rock and just makes a blatant, obvious lies that it is a detonator, that it's gonna explode, that he's setting it off. And he's able to think fast enough to get him and Qi'ra out of there and get them running. Which is great. That's a great way to set the bar of, alright, he's in this really crappy situation, but he's smart. He knows how to survive, he knows what he's doing. So I thought that was great. I did love the scene where they're in the ship trying to get to that port of where, they can jump on a different ship and leave and be free of that planet. And tries to do the thing where he tries to squeeze the ship in between this little tiny space, and he almost makes it. And right at the end, it just, nope. I thought that was a pretty great comedic moment. But we see Qi'ra and Han ultimately get separated. He makes it out and she does not. Which I feel like after seeing that we met Kira so early, that's a little bit, you know, predictable. I kind of assumed that that was going to happen, but I liked it. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was really well done, and I did like the transition of him trying to figure out how he's going to get off of that planet now that he and Kira have made their presence known, and they know that there's an unauthorized person trying to get out. And he sees that he can sign up to be a part of the Empire, that they're looking for troops, and, you know, that's his way out. He's not even thinking about the fact that it's the Empire or anything. He's thinking, that's my way out, and that's how I can eventually become a pilot, which is his ultimate goal. So I really actually didn't hate how he gets his name. I know a lot of people have a problem with it, but I enjoyed it for a lot of reasons. I liked that to the person giving it to him, it was very casual. It was, oh, you're alone, you don't belong to a people, you don't have a family, you don't have a name, so Solo. That makes sense. And it's great because he doesn't understand the significance of it. But it's significant because it's part of Han's new identity that he is trying to create for himself, that he's trying to find by escaping this planet and, you know, trying to forge his own destiny. So being given that name, it helps to give him that passageway to a new identity and allows him to start becoming that new person. And especially when you think about further down the line, the other movies that are already out that we've already seen, Solo becomes such a well-known name and becomes such a significant name with so much weight and so many connections, and I really like the juxtaposition of how casually it's given to him, but the moment that it's given to him, it carries so much weight because of all the situations that we know are going to happen that haven't happened yet. And for that moment of him leaving that part of his past behind, mostly, where, you know, obviously he's going to want to come back for Kira, but he's leaving behind that person that he was on that planet. So I could talk about that for a long time, but I'll leave it there. That's why I liked that scene and the way that it was given, even though a lot of people were unhappy with it. I liked it because I'm a weirdo and immediately thought of what it symbolizes and all of that stuff. So anyway, and then we see it flash forward 3 years, and Han is still fighting. He's a troop on the ground in the actual war, and I love the way that that little sequence is shot, because it's dark and it's gritty, and there are little bursts of light where there's fire and there are bombs and guns going off and things like that. And it's just so grounded in looking so real, but it doesn't keep you from being able to see what's going on. And there's a similar thing with the beginning of the movie when he is in the ship that he just hot-wired, and he's driving through the streetlights, and when they're in that hallway before they go to see Lady Proxima, there's a lot of darkness showing that it's night or that they're inside or whatever the case may be, which adds to the mood and the setting and the aesthetic, but you can still see what's going on. You're not squinting and hoping that you're actually seeing what you think you're seeing. So I will come back to this, but the cinematography in this movie I think is beautiful and so clean and crisp and so well done, but wanted to highlight that. And then, yeah, so we see him meet Beckett and the crew, which I like the way that they used humor in that, because Han has no idea what he's stumbling into. He just thinks that he's found a captain, someone else in charge that can now tell him what to do, because his other leader just blew up, I think. I'm pretty sure he's the one that blew up. But we see Han really trying to talk them up and make that connection, and obviously Beckett wants nothing to do with it because they're not actually a part of the Imperial forces. They're there to get what they need and get out, and Han is smart enough to see that. He's smart enough to pick up on them being out of place and trying to take advantage of a possible opportunity of being able to showcase and offer his skills to be able to get out. So I really liked the way that that was all set up. And because I'm really, really dumb, I absolutely did not see the Beast being Chewie. I did not expect that at all, for that to be the way that Han meets Chewbacca. Which, once again, I'm really dumb because we know that Chewbacca owes Han his life, essentially. We know that Han saved him, and I guess it is more obvious after I've already seen it that, yeah, of course they're talking about Chewbacca, but the first time I watched it through, did not expect that at all. But I really did enjoy it. I loved how, once again, he finds himself in a situation where something's trying to kill him, something wants to kill him, people want him to die. And he thinks fast, he's clever, and he's quick, and he has those survival instincts from growing up on the streets of Corellia. And he's able to very brokenly speak Chewbacca's language, and is able to communicate with him and talk his way out of it and say, look, I don't want to die, and I don't want to kill you, so let's both get out of here. We can get out of here and we can figure this out. And Chewbacca is also a survivalist, obviously, and why would he want to stay there? Why would he want to stay there chained up? So I liked that, how immediately he can talk him into it. It's like, let's work together, let's get out of here. So that was great. So then we see the crew, Beckett's crew, accept Chewie and Han to help them on their mission. Val is not a fan, but everyone else seems to be on board, and they go try to get ready for their mission. Love the train scene. Absolutely love the train scene. It was so well shot, and the action was great, and it really ties the story together well, because we get to see Han actually really fly and, you know, show off his piloting skills, and really gets to do that. We see Enfys Nest. We actually see them, they show up, and we don't really learn anything about them at that point. We just see that they're obviously there to mess up all of their plans and just completely screw everything up. And it's obviously a big turning point in the movie because we lose Val and we lose Rio. And those are two key members, obviously, to Beckett's crew. And it really forces them to reassemble, especially since they lose the hyperfuel. And once Beckett explains to Han and Chewie that, hey, this wasn't us stealing, this was a hired job, and now we have to deal with the consequences. And he offers them an out. Han doesn't even think about trying to get out of it. He immediately, he does. Okay, so let me rephrase that. He suggests that they just run, because that's what he did initially. He deflected, ran away from the Empire, was a deserter. And when Beckett says, look, this is completely different, there'll be a bounty on your head, they'll send people after you, you can't just run. And Han says, okay, so you're saying we have to go to Dryden Voss and hope that he doesn't kill us. And And he says, okay, so that's what we'll do. He never tries to say, well, Voss doesn't know who I am, I can still get out of this. He never says that. Beckett is the one who says, he doesn't know who you are, he hasn't seen your face, you can still get out of this and you don't have to live this life. And Han is the one that says, if the money is in it, it's worth the risk. Because Han doesn't have anything, and neither does Chewie. They don't have a ship to just run away. They don't have another means to easily get money. And so they go. And that, to me, and I don't think they meant it this way, obviously, because it was kind of their only choice. They don't have money and they don't have a ship or anything, but the fact that Han so willingly is like, yeah, we'll go with you. Dryden Voss is a dangerous man, and, you know, we might die and whatever, but they just go, and they're part of he's down for the job, he's down to survive, he's down to do what he has to do. And then we see Dryden's yacht. It's very sleek and very classy and very modernized and just looks so upscale, and it's very ritzy, and I love it. I think aesthetically it works so well. I like the way that once again they incorporated the Star Wars style music into it, but it's more modernized than I think we've seen. So that was really cool. I knew that this is where we were going to see Qi'ra again because of the trailers, which is fine. It's not a huge deal. I mean, it kind of would have been cool to not know that that's where they were going to find her again, but it's fine. So we see him meet up with Qi'ra again, and you can tell that she's different. You can tell that he is still in the mindset of Qi'ra's the same. I'm gonna see her again, and when I see her again, she's gonna be the same like I am, and her goal is still gonna be to run away with me. And for her, she says to him, it's in the past. I'm right in front of you. That's not, she is very dismissive of it, and I think that's a very important scene for showing us where she's at and showing us that they're of two different worlds now, even though they grew up together and grew up on the same streets and had a very strong connection. They are two very different people now, and that right away I was kind of like, oh, she's not really taking to this the way that he seems to think that she is. So that was a little like, oh no. Let's see. So then we see Paul Bettany's character, Dryden Voss. I think the look of that character is fantastic. It's so menacing, but still very classy and very commanding, and I think that it's the perfect kind of presence, especially with Paul Bettany. Class act, love the casting, fantastic. And then, so for me it makes sense that Qi'ra would be his right hand, because not only is she beautiful and lovely to keep around, but she is a survivalist. She says that she serves him because she owes him, which obviously would make sense, because if he got her out of her previous situation with Lady Proxima, or if it was something after that, whatever it was, I do believe that it was his doing that she ended up there with him. But it's also a great opportunity for her, because it puts her in a position of she is trusted by someone that powerful. So not only does he trust her with information, he's also training her and giving her access to resources that she wouldn't have otherwise, which is great for her because she's very smart and she grew up having to have those survivalist instincts and having to be clever. So that's a very dangerous combination that works out very well in her favor. So then we see them have their conversation of, all right, you've got one shot to fix this, don't mess it up, because this is your only shot. This is the only chance you get to fix this, to bring me what you said you were going to bring me. So they have their little meeting. We see that Voss is sending Kira with them, and that leads us to meeting Lando. Now, Lando is everything and more that I was hoping he would be. We see him, and Kira is very fond of him, obviously. Han is not sure how he feels about him, and we see him going in to play Sabacc against Lando. And I was assuming that was actually how they would get the Falcon, but no, it is because of his connection with Kira and Beckett that they get to use the Falcon, which makes sense because Lando is that kind of guy and has that kind of vibe and that kind of charm, and obviously lives very well in that world of connections and people and making those kind of deals, and living that luxurious, elevated kind of life. So that made a lot of sense. So they get on the ship. Han is inside of the Falcon for the first time, which put a really, really big smile on my face, especially when he goes into the control room and looks around, knows the model of the ship, talks about how his dad used to build them, goes to sit in the co-pilot seat, and is just completely drawn to everything about it, which is beautiful and I loved. And then he gets kicked out of the co-pilot's chair by L3, and we see him go and stumble upon Chewie and Beckett playing holographic chess, and Chewie getting upset because he is losing, which is hilarious. And we go to Han finding Kira. And this was the one part in the movie where I was like, yes, I completely relate to Kira 100%. She is me and I am her, because if I was on that ship when Lando still owned it, you bet your freaking butt that I would be in his closet trying on all of his capes and all of his ridiculous custom fashion pieces, because man, like, that guy knows how to dress and his clothes are impeccable and custom made apparently, so that was fantastic. The girl in me that actually does enjoy fashion was very excited about that. But we see Han talking to her, wanting to actually try and connect with her and catch up. And he's referring to, when he's talking, he's referring to their relationship and what their next step is going to be. When she's talking to him, she's referring to the plan and the mission. And she is never the one to bring up them. And when he tries to tell her that he wants to still do that, he wants to know everything about her and wants them to catch up and wants them to pick up where they left off, and she, obviously, that's not where her mind is at, and she's telling him that if he knew what she's done since then and who she's become since then, and he just doesn't want to listen to it. And, you know, then Beckett comes in and interrupts them and tries to tell him, look, this is not a good idea. You don't actually know if you can trust her, and it's hard because Kira is really the only person that Han knows well or thinks that he knows well, because they did grow up together and they helped each other survive, and his goal and his driving force for the things he's done the last 3, 4, however many years since he left Corellia has been to go back to get her. She has been his motivation for what he's been trying to work towards, and for her, that's in the past. That's not on the forefront of her mind. It might, from what it seems like, it hasn't even been on her mind at all. She completely either didn't think that he was ever going to come back, or after a year or two gave up on him coming back, or whatever it was. But there's a very clear divide there with where they both stand, and he's just not quite getting it yet because of how much she means to him, and the fact that pretty much all of his decisions since he left have revolved around getting back to her, which, oh, that's so bad. It really is so heartbreaking. But so we see that happen, and then they get to the planet to get the hyperfuel, and all hell breaks loose because of course it does. So I did like that there was a passing off of the pair of dice. Again, I like how those kept kind of going back and forth, and how he ends up with them again. I liked that we got to see more Wookiees, that Chewbacca got to find more Wookiees, and ultimately decides that he can't go with them, which hurts, but ultimately he decides that he needs to stay with Han and everybody after the end of all of their conflict that they run into on that planet. And obviously we lose L3 as they're trying to leave, and Han gets to fly the Falcon for the first time, which he's clearly very excited about. I was very excited about. And we see him saying he needs a co-pilot, so naturally Qi'ra is there, and then all of a sudden when stuff needs to happen, she's like, about that. And then Chewie just steps in, does everything that needs to be done for what Han wants done, and that's the beginning of it. Right there is the beginning of Han and Chewie, and it just... Guys, I'm such a sucker for it. I don't care. It made me so happy to see that, because Han and Chewie are the dynamic duo. They're the team. And to see the origin of that, and just how casually and easy and naturally that fell into place once Han got to fly the Falcon, made me so happy. So that was awesome. And we see them make the Kessel Run, which is insane. No wonder, like, I know they take a really crazy detour and encounter things that most people actively avoid and do not encounter when making the Kessel Run. But that being said, I can see why no one does it in less than 20 parsecs. I really did like that though. I liked that they did that detour and that we actually got to see the Kessel Run, because it's insane. It really opens up the universe in a unique way, because we get to see parts of space that, like I said, people actively avoid going to those parts of space because those parts of space are very dangerous and messy and you don't want to go there, but we got to see it. We got to see these insane parts of the universe that we didn't get to see before, and I love those little kinds of details and those ways that open up the universe without it being obvious isn't the right word, but without it being so in your face of we're trying to expand the universe. It's more just like, no, this is the universe. These are the little pockets of it that don't normally get discussed, that don't get run into or encountered all the time. So I really enjoyed that. And then they get to the planet where they can refine it and run into Enfys Nest again. This part really reminded me that I felt like I was watching a really, really awesome space western, which is fantastic. So, this standoff, I love the way that it happened, because Lando leaves, just deserts them, is completely done with all this. He is not having it, which when they land on that planet and Han and Lando are standing there looking at the completely banged up, destroyed Falcon. And Lando is just 1,000% done. He is so beyond done. And Han just has his arm around him and it's just smiling and just the complete contrast of their attitudes in that scene is amazing, because Han is super excited that they made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs and that he got to fly, and he got to fly the Falcon. And Lando is seeing that his ship is destroyed and he got shot and he lost L3 and he's just super done with the mission. And he tells Han he never wants to see him again. He is gonna go be in his quarters and waiting for his share and is not doing anything else. And Han is just it's still just smiling and basically just giving him crap without actually giving him crap, which is awesome. And I think it punctuates their relationship very well. It shows that, you know, that they have this very interesting dynamic to them, where Han is in this situation, between the two of them, Han is the one that is the charming, suave, like, trying to goad him into being his friend, and Lando is just kind of reluctantly putting up with him. But not to mention, because I didn't mention this, but on the Falcon, before we lose L3, when they just nonchalantly and casually are calling each other baby, is one of my favorite canonical things in a Star Wars movie, because it's so perfect, especially when L3 chimes in, when Lando is talking to Han and is like, "You done flirting? Like, can we actually do this?" A+, fantastic. Just needed to make sure I mentioned that because I love it and think it works so well. But anyway, back to Enfys Nest. I was not expecting it to be an extremely striking, beautiful, powerful young lady, but I'm so glad that it was, and I didn't realize I needed that until it actually happened. And I love that we figure out that they're not marauders. They're not pirates. They're not trying to destroy anything. They're trying to fight back. They're trying to do good. They're trying to start a rebellion, and I love it. I love it because it resonates with Han. You can tell that it does. You can tell that he's listening to what she's saying and looking at her and looking at her crew, and he gets it. And you can tell that he wants to help, but he's the only one that does. Beckett obviously does not care about helping, and neither does she. Qi'ra obviously has her own agenda, and when he goes to Beckett and has his plan and wants to help, but also get the price off of their head and has a way to do it, and Beckett just says no. He values his life and his own selfish needs. He's selfish. He's a selfish guy. He's in it for himself. He has told Han that you believe everyone is going to betray you. You're only in it for you, and that's the only way you can survive. So it's unsurprising when he doesn't want to help. And then Qi'ra doesn't really say whether or not she wants to help. She just kind of goes along with it. And so then we see the plan start to unfold. And we see everyone betray everyone in the span of about 5 minutes. Maybe 10 minutes. But, so Qi'ra and Han are trying to betray Dryden, obviously. And then Beckett shows up, having betrayed them, because he's still working with Dryden. And then Dryden thinks he's figured out their plan and thinks that he's won and has captured Enfys Nest. But he hasn't, because Han is smart as heck and has figured out that Beckett is predictable and Dryden is predictable, and they are all predictable and planned ahead for that, which is amazing because it just shows that he's smart and he's resourceful, and he is also a survivalist and knows what he's doing and is willing to do whatever it takes to win, but also to help others in the process, which is funny. It's not funny, but it is funny because back when they were still refining the hyperfuel before we meet Enfys Nest, him and Kira have a conversation, and he says to her, you know, I'm a smuggler. I'm an outlaw. And she laughs and she says, you're not. And he says, I'm not the kid you used to know. I am an outlaw. And she says, you can tell yourself that, and you can tell everyone else that, and you can think that. But I know you, and I know you're not. You were the good guy. And he laughs and brushes it off and says he's not the good guy. That he's a terrible person, which, no, he's not. There is not a single thing in that movie, in my opinion, that shows that Han is a terrible person. He thinks that he is. That's his opinion of himself. But, especially with the characters that he is surrounded by, that contrast of all of the people that he finds himself in the company of, he's not even close to a terrible person. And so just his want to help these people, I don't even think he realizes what that says about him and what that means. But so we see that, we see Beckett's plan fall apart and Dryden Voss's plan fall apart. We see Kira kill Dryden Voss, and at one point, you know, you don't really know if she's gonna betray him or if she's gonna betray Han or what's going on with her, but ultimately she kills him. And then we see, you know, Han go after Chewie and Beckett and finally takes that survivalist step of killing Beckett. He is paying attention and sees that Beckett is going to shoot him, and Han shoots first. You're welcome. So there's that. And, you know, it obviously still hurts him to have to do it because he does it and then runs to Beckett's side to hold his hand and support him as he's dying, which says a lot. That really, really says a lot about who Han Solo is on the inside. It really shows that he is not the terrible person that he is trying to tell Kira that he thinks he is. And then we see Kira on the yacht, and she takes Dryden Voss's ring and puts it into this little secret notch thing on the desk, and she's talking to someone. She's talking to Dryden's boss and saying that he was killed, and is giving him updates on what happened. And I'm someone who avoided all spoilers for this movie. I didn't know anything about it going into it. So for me, when the reveal is finally made and it's Darth Maul sitting there, I lost my mind. I absolutely lost my mind because Darth Maul was so wasted when he was used in the prequels. He was on screen for maybe 20 minutes, I think, and then he is killed. He had so much potential to be used as a fantastic villain, and they just completely throw him in the trash. So for him to pop up again, it made me very, very happy. Very happy. I have no idea if they have future plans to use him in something else. I'm assuming that they do, since they brought him back. I'll be very interested to see how they work that into everything. But I am very interested to see that, because I'm hoping that they will find a way to use him in a way that makes sense with all of the timelines, and in a way where he doesn't feel like it was just a complete waste to even introduce him in the movies at all. And then Han and Chewie give hyperfuel back to Enfys Nest, and she tells him that he's welcome to go with, that they need great leaders and fighters like him, and of course they turn it down. And then they watch Qi'ra leave them behind, and Han finally starts to get it. And then we see Han and Chewie go find Lando again. They go find Lando, and this time Han is ready and is not going to let Lando cheat. And they actually win the Falcon. And they're off. They're off to start their adventures as smugglers as Han and Chewie. So, that is that as far as talking about the story. Overall, I loved the tone of the movie. I thought that it was a consistent tone. It was grounded, and it was grounded, and it was a more serious tone. There were great comedic moments in it and moments of hope, but it was very much a tone of, I don't know, it felt like it wasn't giving up those serious moments. It was letting itself have serious moments and letting itself tell the story without trying to provide too much comedic relief, which I liked. I thought there was a good balance there. I didn't have any issues with the pacing either of the times that I watched it. The first watch through, there were parts that were a little bit slow, but it didn't bother me. The second time I saw it, none of it felt slow to me, which was great. So I thought that it moved along well. I thought that it flowed well. Like I already kind of mentioned, I thought the cinematography was great. I really liked the color palette that they used, how there were darker, grittier tones with when they were on the planets that they were fighting on, when they're on Corellia. You know, there were just tones and colors that made a lot of sense, and there were great contrasts with certain wardrobe pieces and things like that, which is great. The wardrobe was fantastic, especially Lando's wardrobe. A+ there. It felt like all the wardrobe fit really well into the universe from what we've already seen, and the way people dress, and just kind of the shapes and colors and textures that are already used in this universe. I thought it was very well integrated with all of that. The script was decent. I really liked the story that was being told, and I thought it was told well. There were some lines here and there that were a little clunky and fell a little flat, but like I said, it was a decent script. It achieved what it set out to, in my opinion. So I didn't have any major problems with it. There wasn't really anything where I heard a line or anything where it took me out of the movie or just felt like it was jarring, so that's great. And then I was completely invested in the story the entire time. I was genuinely interested in the journey that this movie was taking me on, and I enjoyed every second of it. I loved it, and I thought it fit really well into the universe, and I thought it made a lot of sense for Han Solo. So I really, really, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the cast a lot. I thought Alden Ehrenreich did a really great job making Han Solo his own, but also living in the character that was already created. He had a lot of the Han Solo / Harrison Ford swagger and the, you know, the smirk and the attitude, and embodied all of that very well. He had that charm and was very believable in the role, and I would love to see him play the role again, so hopefully we'll get to see that, because I really would love to see him continue to develop his take on this character. Donald Glover was great. He didn't really do anything new with the character. I don't really feel like he made it his own as much, but he was still great. It felt like Lando. It was pretty much everything that I was hoping for and expecting. He played Lando with a very unique charm, with that Lando Calrissian charm, and understood the motivations and the desires, and really embodied that, you know, that kind of selfish, arrogant, very luxurious, uppity kind of attitude. Like I said, Paul Bettany was great. Emilia Clarke was fine. I wasn't as fond of her, just because I don't feel like she acted this role very well. I feel like the character fell flat in a lot of scenes. A lot of the lines fell flat. There wasn't a ton of emotional depth. And it just didn't feel like the character was as lived in by her as the other actors. It felt like it just felt like there wasn't a full commitment to the character. It felt like I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that she was, I don't know, there was just something lacking. The character just fell very flat for me. There were lines that were delivered where it sounded very monotone when it shouldn't have been, and there were scenes where there should have been a lot of chemistry between her and Alden Ehrenreich, and it just wasn't there. And I don't think it was because of him. He did a fantastic job and really delivered in those scenes, and I feel like she just wasn't quite giving it back. And maybe it did have to do with the fact that their chemistry just wasn't great. Maybe some of it had to do with the script, but for me it just fell a little flat, and that's kind of disappointing, because I feel like her character had a lot of potential, and she really could have been someone cool. She could have been someone where you really felt for her, and you really were surprised and upset when she started betraying him, and when you realized that she never actually got out. And then, you know, you could by the end be partially wanting to root for her, because she did, you know, take her survivalist skills and find a way to put herself in a position of power. But for me, I just didn't end up caring about where her character ended up and her arc, because of how flat that character just fell for me. But, so, those are my thoughts on Solo, you guys. I absolutely loved this movie. I left, the first time after I see it, I left with a smile on my face, wanting to see the movie again immediately. So went and saw it again today, the next day, and left loving it just as much, if not more. So it really holds up for me, which I'm so glad that it does. I just have a lot of love for this movie, and I really hope that we get to see more from Alden Ehrenreich and more from this story, because I loved it. And even if we don't, I'm glad that we have this movie, because I definitely will be watching it again in the future, several more times at least. And it's definitely going into my Star Wars collection as something that I just adore, that I just love, and something that I think really adds to the universe in a great way. But all of that being said, what did you guys think of the movie? Please leave your comments down below so we can talk about it. Please don't be too mean. I know that some of you are going to be really upset that I liked this movie as much as I did, but please be kind. Let's discuss this and not have it just be yelling at me, please. But if you guys want to find me on social media, as always, my links are down in the description. My Patreon link is also down there if you want to donate. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. It means so much to me, and I think that is all I have to say. So with that, I will see you all next time.